Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa mkulima kuwa mshindi. Kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Hello there, this is Farm Kenya show right here on KTN, and today we are in the CBD, Nairobi, and we'll be looking at the coffee processing, and we'll be going through the different steps. Remember, last week we took you to the farm, we showed you how coffee is grown, the taking care of coffee. What goes into that? We looked at every aspect when it comes to the growing of coffee, and we also looked at the harvesting process. Today, we'll be looking at the seed that was harvested, how it is brewed. At the end of the day, we are getting the coffee in the cup. Remember, every Tuesday, we take you through the whole process from the seed to the cup. And today we'll be looking at the seed and how this is brewed into coffee. Join me as we go into this. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so let us look at now the cafe has received the coffee beans packaged. What is the sorting process? What usually happens at this place?
So usually when the cafe receives the coffee, there's an assumption that whoever is supplying the coffee for you has sorted the coffee. But we always say you have to be very careful, considering some of the new cafes, they use very expensive equipment to make the coffee. And if one bag of coffee has perhaps a piece of stone, that's enough to ruin the whole machine and damage it. So usually we tell them to sort it again, just go through it. Usually this can take maybe 10 to 15 minutes to go through the whole lot that we've provided to them. Then once they've done the sorting, now they can go ahead and grind per cup. So most of the grinders are on demand. So they grind maybe 20 to 30 grams for every cup of coffee they produce, they make, and then that ultimately gives you that specialty coffee experience.
All right.
Yeah.
And even before we move and look at how the grinding happens and all these things, let us look at the bean. What is it in the bean that shows you that this bean is good for coffee making, and which bean is better for maybe these different types of coffee? So you can just give us a little bit about that.
Right. So from a specialty coffee point of view, you'd prefer to have a dark roast for espresso coffee machine. So if you're using an espresso machine, you prefer to have a darker roast profile of coffee. And if you're doing the other method, which is the hand brewing method, you prefer to have a lighter roast or a medium roast coffee. Now we are assuming the quality of the coffee was good at sourcing, and then the processing and the storage was good, and now you're receiving a high standard coffee, which means when you roast it, the profile is going to match what is expected in the final cup.
All right.
Yeah.
So the bean, still the bean. When you look at the bean, I believe there are different types of beans. So you can show us, at least we see which bean is good for coffee making, and what should farmers look at, especially when they've harvested and they've now seen, okay, this is the bean that we have. So you can just show us, and so that we see.
So what we have here, this is a final roasted bean, and that's a medium roast bean.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's not really dark specifically. So it's not been roasted to that dark profile for the espresso cup. But this is the perfect roast profile for the bean if you wanted to make a hand brewing coffee. Now it's very difficult to know if the bean was specialty if they're all even, because the first thing we look at is the evenness of the bean. So if they're even, we assume the bean was good. But there are other factors. You can look at it and see if there is a lot of inconsistencies in the bean size, and maybe you have rotten beans. That basically shows you that was a poor quality batch.
Okay.
Right? But our suppliers and our retail outlets, they have this element of trust where we know that there's a consistency in the beans that we are going to receive, because we don't expect them to sort the beans every time they receive it. So this is done at the production level. So by the time they receive the beans, it's high quality specialty grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is roasted
This is already
bean?
roasted, yes.
Okay, so now after the sorting has been done, now the cafe has received the packet of coffee beans. What is the next process? Because many, you go to a restaurant, you say, okay, I need coffee. But now, after sorting, what is the next process?
So basically, we advise the cafes to keep the coffee in a cool, dry area, and then they'll use it on demand. We would not advise a coffee shop, an outlet like this in the central business district, to get more than 10 kilos of coffee. We give them coffee that we know will be consumed in a short period of time, so that we have that element of freshness. Okay? So once they have the coffee, they keep it somewhere cool. That's it. The bags are dark, and they're designed specifically for that, to actually keep the moisture level of the coffee to be at an optimum level. So once they have the coffee, then maybe open 1 bag or 2 bags per day, depending on how the demand is, and they use those state-of-the-art equipment to just have on-demand brew, depending on what they're making. I think that's where we rely on the skills of someone like Damien a lot, because now it's up to the barista. First thing when they do in the morning when they come to the coffee shop is to calibrate this machine. This machine takes about an hour in the morning to get ready, get the optimum temperature, and be on a consistent cruise mode. So a specialized and an experienced barista will know and will taste a few cups of coffee before he actually rolls it out to the guests.
Okay.
So the skill, the human skill there is very important to be able to have that consistent cup throughout the day.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think now we look at the different types of coffee, espresso, and the rest. So, and also you'll give us the names that maybe, the times that we have others that use Romeo, Juliet, we have different others. So you'll just give us that. So I think we'll move to this side. We're now going to be moving to this side to just look at how this seed that came from harvest got to this particular cafe, and it was sorted, and now we're going to be looking at the different types of coffee that are made and how they are made. Right, so let's go.
So I believe Damien is going to make a cappuccino for us now. You can see it's an espresso. So usually, look at this equipment. The reason they have 3 groups is that depending on how busy the coffee is, this machine can make 3 different coffees. In fact, it can make up to 6 different coffees at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, the 2 group means that you can have a double espresso on each side of the
All right.
of the grouper. So when you're having a high demand, you'd definitely rely on this type of equipment to make your coffee.
Okay.
So basically, the usual process is you start with an espresso, and then if you're looking for a milk-based coffee, you do the frothing, and then you have your cappuccino.
All right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to espresso,
Yeah.
what goes into that? Like, what type of milk do you use? What type of milk do you use? What type of can I call it? Is there a specialized milk, or is there a specialized type of liquid you use to mix with the milk?
Yeah, I think commercially these days we have specialized milk for the coffees, but then it's down to preference. Some people prefer low-fat milk, some people prefer full-cream milk, and then some brands now have like just barista milk. for its special frothing components. So some people will lean more on the texture of the coffee, and some people will just lean more on the taste that they get. So personally, I prefer full cream coffee, but then I do enjoy a cappuccino, which you tend to use less milk compared to other beverages like a latte. And even some baristas will still make a cappuccino, but use extra amount of milk to actually make the drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to latte,
Right.
what goes into that?
So there's espresso. Espresso is the base. So that's the canvas that you use to make coffee. And then from the espresso, you can decide you're going to have it as an espresso, or you can decide you're going to have it as black coffee. So that's espresso plus water. And then you can decide you're going to have it as a latte, like you've mentioned, and that's basically espresso plus steamed milk. Plenty for that matter. So entry-level coffee drinkers usually will enjoy espresso because the ratio of the milk to the coffee is quite high on the milk side. All right, and then cappuccino is having espresso with froth, a certain amount of froth. So there's still milk, but quite less compared to what you'd have with a latte. Okay, so it's all coffee, and when you're using this machine, everything originates from the espresso, and then you can expound to a variety of up to 200 different beverages from that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at such a machine, and if you want to use it at home, because someone, is it first of all, are you able to use such a machine at home, or it's basically meant for commercial use?
This would be equivalent, just if you allow me to be extravagant, would be equivalent to buying an Airbus for a private jet, right? Okay. Yeah, because this is actually designed to make up to 3,000 to 4,000 cups in a day. So you would essentially not need it at home. And it's actually a high maintenance equipment as well. So usually these brands will have smaller models that maybe have only one group. So you see these three components will just be compressed into one. And that still is a highly potent machine that can make up to 200 to 300 cups in a day. Okay. So if you're really a coffee enthusiast, you get one of that in your house. But remember, if you get this one, you also have to get the coffee grinder to grind your beans before you can actually get it to the chamber to make your coffee. So a quick solution, actually an easy and way popular solution for that is all these manufacturers these days, they have the bean to cup machines, and I believe you've come across one where it's just press and play. So the machine will grind the coffee, make the espresso, take it to the milk chamber, mix the coffee and the milk, have your cappuccino within a minute.
So I believe now we've looked at, are there really other types that we might not know, especially when it comes to coffee, so that at least some can be made here, so that at least we see how they are made?
Yeah, I think Damien can make for us his favorite special. So that we try it out today.
Okay.
Usually baristas will have their signature.
Okay.
So every barista will have a coffee drink that he really enjoys making. And usually when I go to a coffee shop and I'm undecided about which coffee I'm going to have, I try to trust the barista to give me his signature drink.
Okay.
And see how that goes. 90% of the time you'll have a nice beverage.
All right. As we wait for Damien to make us his special, let us talk about grinding of coffee.
Right.
Are there different types of grindings? Because
Yes.
Everything that is grinded, there is the fine grind, there is the one that is a little bit not very fine.
Yeah.
So you can just give us a little bit about that, so that at least we'll move to that side and see how coffee is grinded.
Right. So when you're looking at a coffee shop and in a busy centralized area in the city like this, the most important thing is speed, and there's no faster equipment than an espresso machine. Now, how this machine makes coffee is through pressurized steam being pumped into the coffee grinds to actually extract a concentrate. And that's what we call an espresso, right? So I'll allow you to have a guess. What do you think the grind that we need for this kind of drink would be?
The grind.
Yeah, grind size.
Grind size. Very small.
Precisely.
Very
Okay,
small.
you want it to be very fine,
Very
very
fine.
compact,
Yes.
because you want to rely on pressure.
Yes.
If it was coarse, then you put pressure within a microsecond,
It has
the
come out.
water would have come out.
Yes.
But that's not the solution you're looking for. You're looking for a concentrate. So this is the finest, you need the finest grind of coffee to make an espresso drink, all right? And that goes across all espresso beverages. Because remember, it starts from the concentrate. You're going to depend on this concentrate to make your latte, to make your cappuccino, to make your black coffee. So you want it as potent as possible. So the grind size is quite important to be fine. But that's a primary base. You have to check the air pressure of the equipment as well, and then the other elements on the water that you have to check. The water texture as well. You can't just use any water. In fact, you can't use hard water for this equipment. So that's also very important. And then when you come in the morning, the same grind will interact differently with the coffee than, for example, it did the previous day.
Okay.
And that's why baristas come and calibrate the machine and just try to find the sweet cup before they can actually go ahead and say this is the coffee of the day. But now with the advancement in technology, we have a very specialized equipment. We call them tamping equipment.
Okay.
That are really, really designed.
So this one is the one that is pressing
the coffee grinds before you can actually dip it here and get your extraction.
Okay, so let's say you don't grind, you don't use the fine grind like this one that we have.
Yeah.
Let's say you have the one that is a little bit medium. It's not very fine and it's not, it's just in the middle.
Correct.
Is the quality of coffee that is going to come out of that different from what we have here?
Yes. It's going to be a bad quality of coffee, basically.
Okay.
And that's because you want to extract as much juice as possible from this coffee grinds. If the grind is medium, and remember there's so much pressure coming from this equipment, if the grind is medium, it means there's going to be what we call channeling, because water finds the easiest path out. So when there are channels that it can go through, it's going to escape through that channel, and all the water will go through the easiest channel out. And what happens? There is not enough interaction between the water and the coffee, and then minimum extraction, bitterness, because not high quality extraction will take place. So it's very important to get the grind
Fine,
right.
the fine grind.
Even the tamping, even the pressing has to be level. If you look at this, the circular line here is quite even. You can't press harder on one side than the other. It has to be really balanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Mike. So I believe Damien can make us his special.
Yes.
So that we see how it is, how it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Damien, from the look of it, is going to make for us Hario V60. That's a Japanese-inspired hand brewing method.
Okay.
So what he's doing now is just rinsing the filter paper.
And what does the rinsing of the filter paper help?
It eliminates the paper taste in coffee.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And can someone rinse that with cold water or?
You can use cold or hot water. It's fine. Yeah.
And right now I can see he's putting in the
pre-ground coffee.
Okay.
So he just grinded it. And if you see there's a scale right at the bottom.
Okay.
He's just trying to make sure it's a specific number of grounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for example, now at home, does someone need a scale?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what he's basically doing right now, you can just take us through?
So it's basically just brewing the Hario. So from what I'm seeing now, he's actually done the first pour. He's gonna have 3 pours, and at the same time, he's trying to ensure that the minutes that the coffee is going to brew for, if I'm not wrong, does not go beyond 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so every few seconds he's going to do a pour, and he's doing it in a very nice circular motion.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the coffee is not disturbed.
All right.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it stays more than the 3 minutes or more than the time that is supposed to be allocated, what happens?
Basically, there's going to be an over extraction.
Okay.
Remember, I told you there has to be a specific grammage for a specific amount of water.
Okay.
So if you intended to have a 300 ml grams, that's how it's going to have to match the ratio of 21 grams, for example, of coffee.
Okay.
So some people prefer maybe for the 21 grams for a stronger cup of coffee, they'll use a lesser amount of water. So it's all about how you match the coffee grinds, the water, and the temperature of the water as well during this period of time.
Okay. And so, for example, someone at home might not have the filter, the paper filter.
Oh, they're easily available.
For example, if someone
Yeah.
doesn't have it, can someone use a serviette or a tissue?
Piece of cloth.
Yeah,
Okay, serviette I've never heard of, but there are
Okay.
specific cloths designed for that. They're actually cloth filters that people use just for reducing paper waste purposes. Some people prefer to use that, but if you ask me personally, I'd prefer a filter paper because then you use only once, so you're sure that the only taste you're going to be acquiring is the taste coming from the cup of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can see Damien is done.
He's
Now he
done.
has extracted the coffee that was supposed to be extracted.
Yep.
Yes. All right. So
This is Hario V60.
okay. So that is the type.
That's the equipment. It's named
Oh,
after the
the-
equipment that's
Oh,
used
it's
to make
named
it.
after the equipment.
Yes, so we have
Okay.
Kalita, we have Hario, we have Chemex. So the equipment dictates the name of the cup. Now you can see the drawback with say using hand brewing equipment, it's taken Damien perhaps and that's the quickest he could have done about 4 to 5 minutes to prepare this cup of coffee for us. If you're having a busy coffee shop, that may sometimes be quite inefficient because then you'll be required to produce maybe 10 to 15 cups at the same time.
Okay.
So it's much quicker using an espresso. But if you want coffee in its purest form, it's always advised to get a hand-brewed cup of coffee.
Okay. So now that we've seen what Damien has made,
Yeah.
I think we can a little bit speak about the different other types.
Can
you
I
had.
test Damien's coffee?
Oh yeah, we can taste. We can taste it. You can taste it. Mike is going to taste the coffee for us to tell us what.
It's a great cup of coffee.
Okay. So what makes it great? Could it be the taste as well? Because I know there are fruity types of coffees, and there are also the ones that are very can I call them dark or yes?
So if you're doing hand brewed coffee, like we discussed earlier, you'd preferably want to use light or a medium roast coffee. So with the medium roast, you always expect to have a fruity flavor, floral flavor, a balanced body, and a bit of bitterness. Okay, bitterness is not entirely a bad thing if it's not excessive. If it's lingering at the back of a more pronounced fruity flavors, floral flavors, candy, other fruits like sugarcane. If you can pick that before actually the bitterness settles in, it goes to show you it's a good quality of cup. And most of the time, I always say, rule of thumb, if you can drink it and not look for where a jar of sugar is to add a couple of spoons, it means it's tolerable for coffee. That's an indicator that it's decent. It's a decent cup of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the different tastes that we have, the Kenyan coffee, the original Kenyan coffee, you can give us what we usually have and why it is very appealing, especially when it comes to the global standards of coffee, where Kenya is, first of all, and why is it that our coffee is very, very outsourced when it comes to different people from all over the world.
So that's the controversial topic.
Yes.
In fact, we had this before the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so coffee, Kenyan coffee is regarded by Kenyans as the best coffee in the world. I appreciate the patriotism, but if you're looking at it from a global point of view, I would say Kenya is amongst the best coffees in the world. Okay? It's always in no particular order, but if the coffee is grown along the equator belt, and if it's also grown on high altitude volcanic soils, you're going to have very good quality of coffee, which if it's in the right environment, you will get specialty grade coffee. So Kenya is amongst those countries. Unfortunately for Kenya, our production of specialty coffee is now dwindling, of course, because of competition from, guess what, real estate. Okay, so places that were known for high quality, rich soils are now being turned into real estate, like Kiambu. But thankfully, we still have Moranga, we still have Nyeri and other places. Even Mount Elgon is now coming up with coffee as well. So, yes, in a nutshell, Kenyan coffee is considered to be one of the best in the world. It's unique in its flavors, so it's an acquired taste. Some swear by it, and some don't take it. But because the scale of which Kenyan coffee is being produced, I don't believe we are even in the top 10 in terms of quantity of coffee being produced. So the demand is high but that's the virtue of the supply being low, makes the demand for Kenyan coffee to be very high. And Kenyan coffee is actually one of the most expensive coffee generally globally.
Okay. Yeah. Right, Mike, thank you so much for that. And now we're going to take a short break. Don't go too far, we'll be back with me.
Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa mkulima, kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kuulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
All right, welcome back. And we are still speaking about coffee making and coffee brewing. Earlier on, we saw some of the processes in which coffee is made. And right now, we are seated having a little coffee by ourselves with Mike still with us here. So, Mike, let's get into the conversation and look at coffee culture in Kenya. You know, when you look at Kenya, there's the culture, the coffee culture. And from your expertise, when it comes to how Kenyans have embraced coffee over the years, where are we in terms of the coffee culture as a country?
I'd say we are picking up, and we are quite fortunate to have some of the best coffee in the world again. So that has tremendously helped to increase the number of coffee drinkers in the country. But going back to the culture, Kenya suffered, but in a good way, because coffee was having competition from tea, still has competition from tea. Remember, Kenya is the second largest producer of tea in the world. So our go-to beverage was always tea. So when the advent of drinking coffee, especially specialty coffee, started, it's taken a lot of effort to actually put this across and get people exposed to high quality coffee. Now, I'd say in 2020, during the COVID lockdown, that's when I would say a rapid increase in the people drinking specialty coffee occurred. And this is mainly due to the fact that a lot of people spent time at home and they became curious of trying different methods of exploring coffee. And this is where now they used also the internet to see what's happening on the other sides of the world, in countries that were known to be importing a lot of Kenyan coffee. So when people locally got to witness this, they also started to actually try out different recipes, and they realized most of the time you don't actually need a big espresso machine if you're just making coffee for one and two. There are many ways you can use to get a good cup of coffee. If you're using a mocha pot, hand brewing like a Hario, the one you just seen, there are other methods you can actually, or a presser, the one they used in the old hotels. You just pour water, put the coffee beans, and then decant it. So there are a few ways you can use to make coffee at home, and I think this has gone a long way to increasing the consumption of coffee in Kenya.
Okay.
But if you ask me, we are roughly at 25% at best. And I think if you're comparing with a country like Ethiopia, which is well over 80%, we still have some catching up to do. Now, if you're a coffee seller and you roast your own coffee, it gives you control over the quality of coffee you're going to give your consumers, right? And if you're a cafe that gets roasted coffee, then you have to be very diligent on the sorting and selection part of the coffee, because you don't know if the roasting standards were up to the level that you expect, because you don't have control over that space.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much for just touching on the roasting part. Thank you so much for that. Now, let's come back to what you are speaking about. You've spoken about the culture, and you've seen over the years it has improved in a way.
Right.
Now, let's look at the farmer, the one who is producing and growing this particular type of crop. Now, challenges when it comes to production, challenges when it comes to market, accessing the market. When you look at middlemen who are usually the ones who may be coming in between the farmer and the market. So give us a little bit about that, and what these challenges are posing into the coffee sector in Kenya.
First of all, we have to appreciate that even compared to tea and other horticulture, coffee is a very capital-intensive cash crop. And it's a slow yield, which means you only harvest 2 times in a year. And if you plant a coffee seed now, the one you plant today will have its berries ready for harvest in about 2 to 3 years. Okay, so that's a long-term project. Now, back to the farmers. The farmers have historically been underpaid a lot. And then again, the middlemen, further downplaying and further cutting away from the margins the coffee farmers would have gotten, because now they take their cut before they can actually export the coffee. So whatever price they give the importers is also inclusive of their percentages and what they want, right? So companies like Fairchain, what they've done now is having direct interactions with the farmers, okay, and making sure that the value addition is now brought into the country of origin. Okay, so what do? Number one, they are in direct communication with the cooperatives that these farmers take their produce to, and then ensure that they give them facilitating resources like giving them wet mills and providing ambient environment for them to actually prepare the coffee, and then making sure there is a ready market for them to actually sell the coffee. And then what's coffee without a good quality of life? Okay, so quality of life now comes from making sure that these farmers are paid well above the minimum market rate to purchase the coffee. And we always encourage these international companies to make sure that they actually speak out if they're paying above the market rate, minimum market rate of buying the coffee, so that the farmers would know which buyers are undercutting them and which buyers are actually legitimately trying to make their sales better, but also the standards of these farmers' lives better. So Fairchain, for example, what they do is that they empower these women through investing in these women through cooperatives, by making sure these women actually take their children to school in an incentivized program where they are only remunerated in bonuses based on their children's attendance. So of course, you have to liaise with a lot of people like the local government and the schools and the administrators. But just knowing that you are involved in the community that is helping to bring this coffee either back to those countries, like for example the Netherlands and Germany and those countries in the EU, and then the consumers on the other side knowing that you as an exporter are actually engaging in corporate social responsibility activities within the country of origin is very important.
Okay.
So we advise buyers to, and even consumers within the country and those countries to always ask what is the value addition initiative that these companies are taking when they take the coffee to the other side of the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And now let's look at the market aspect of Kenyan coffee, because we spoke earlier and you spoke about the dwindling nature of how we have been doing business when it comes to coffee, and how this is affecting the industry. So give us a little bit about that so that we understand where we are as a country in terms of the coffee type of farming and what is really happening in the field.
So coffee has been an industry that has taken a lot, especially before it became one of the preferred beverages in the country. The industry had been taking a lot from the country, but giving back very little. All right. So one of the initiatives we again had to encourage exporters was, why don't you consider a model that brings the value addition back to the country? Okay, I was discussing with one of my friends recently, and it was quite interesting that we realized some of the coffee that we consume in Kenya is sourced from Kenya, roasted and packaged overseas
somewhere else, and
then it's brought back. All right. So how about coffee? Those individuals and mega companies investing in coffee, actually bringing most of these value addition processes to Kenya to create jobs, to create opportunities, and to bring back the wealth generation to the country of origin, and then export the final finished product, right? Of course, Fairchain is a very good example of this again. So what they do, they actually interact with the farmers, source the coffee, store it within the Kenyan borders, roast it, and now what they're doing, they package it, and then they sell it directly. Just this simple act of doing the same process that would have been done overseas will create jobs on a sourcing level, on a packaging level, on a roasting level, on a retail level. And if they go ahead and open a cafe, then they're also creating jobs for other people like baristas, okay? Other people like waiters and waitresses, while still being able, and I'd say very able, to export the same end product to the country of export. So if all exporters actually tried to do this, how many successful cafes would we have in the country? A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, the coffee business, what we have today is just the front end of the coffee business. There's a lot that goes on in the coffee business. There's barista school where they train baristas. I think Kenya sends over 1,000 baristas out of the country every month. And I'm on the lower end. So if these empowerment activities come within our borders, then economically coffee will now have bigger say, right, in terms of now what it's controlling within the value chain, and this always trickles down back to the farmers.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at the globe, when we look at globally, and how coffee business is done, and how coffee farming is also done, you've been privileged to just travel out of the country and also do coffee business out of the country, and even interact with different farmers when it comes to how they are taking care of this crop. What is it that Kenya or Kenyan farmers can pick from even farmers in the neighboring countries or even overseas, that those farmers are doing right, that maybe we might not be doing right?
I wouldn't say it's an element of what they do right, but it's what happens after the coffee has been handed over to the cooperatives, or the coffee has been handed over to the exporter. Remember, a coffee farmer has to be passionate about being a coffee farmer. That's the start of it. All right. Now, if they're well invested, the climate and the region of Kenya allows for very good quality of coffee. Right. But at the end of the day, it has to be a business, correct? So if this business in the long term doesn't prove profitable to this coffee farmer, however much he's enthusiastic about this, he's not going to be successful. Now, the case with Kenya is very interesting because the most fertile coffee areas and the most popular coffee areas are near the city of Nairobi. So now the direct competition becomes real estate. Now, real estate can give you 3 or 4 times the amount of, at the minimum, the amount of money you'd raise by just being exclusively a coffee farmer, right? So, what did we do? We encouraged other people now outside the traditional coffee growing areas of Murang'a, Nyeri, and Kiambu to actually invest in the coffee business. That's why Kericho now is very popular. Okay, and then Kisii is now very, very popular as well. Mount Elgin coffee is also very popular. So when the expansion took place, Embu and Meru are also very popular now as coffee producers. So when the expansion took place, basically we now showed the farmers that, look, yes, traditionally we had coffee in the central region, but that's dwindling because of real estate, and it's not much. We can't compete with that. But as other areas now take it up, we can now increase our production to where it used to be, or even greater heights. Because as long as you're not in the real high real estate areas, coffee is still a very profitable cash crop to grow. And if you're working directly with exporters, you know your ready market is there. You will apply the best farm practices because you know your buyer. So you start from the end. The end is the buyer and the consumer. So if the buyer is in Netherlands, we tell what? Look, Fairchild, how much quantity of coffee do you want? They elaborate that to us. They come, they help with the best practices. The farmers are empowered. So the entire value addition process now is going to be streamlined to ensure that this quality product ends up in the good hands of whoever is going to consume it in the way they desired it. Especially is the case for this is especially the case for the specialty coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even as we are continuing with the conversation, now let's look at the industry going forward in terms of incorporating innovations and also machines and tech in the farm. When it comes to because as you've explained, there are now other new regions that are coming up, Kisii, Kericho, they're coming up now making coffee. First of all, before we even go to the mechanization or the innovations, let's look at the type of soil and how it affects the quality. And now that we usually have climate change is changing everything and how things are, how does this affect the quality of coffee that comes out? And is it a contributor to dwindling of the business in the country?
I would say, of course, innovation in agricultural technology has really helped. Some areas which would have previously not had a very yielding coffee produce now do, because of now the advent of hybrid seeds, okay, that can withstand slightly harsher climate compared to the mountainous regions and highland and high altitude areas in Kenya. So that has helped. And then, of course, more information about the right chemicals to use, the right fertilizers to use, assistance on using bio manure and being provided steadily to the farmers, or at least being subsidized the rates at which they get those. That has really helped. But back to your question, these areas, like if you look at Kisii, if you look at Kericho, if you look at Embu and Meru, they're still high altitude areas. They're absolutely high altitude areas. But previously, this was something they never engaged in because, again, if you're going to grow a cash crop, there has to be an end market projected where you're going to sell it. Otherwise, the shelf period for these cash crops can be a couple of months, and if you don't sell it, you've spent a whole sort of planting and farming season without any return on investment. As opposed to if they only planted maize, they're sure they'll sell the maize because that's a staple food in Kenya. So them being assured that whatever they're going to produce will have an end market and there's going to be a purchaser for that, and there's communication, constant communication with the people who are going to buy and consume the coffee, I think has been very encouraging. And of course, it's yielding, if well controlled, it's going to yield more income for the farmers. Definitely. It requires a lot of diligence and best practices, but in terms of return on investment, of course, coffee is up there with the cash crops. Yeah.
Right. Now, to follow up on what you've just mentioned, and even as we wrap up now this particular conversation, let us look at the way forward when it comes to engaging with the farmers in the rural areas, and how Kenya, the people in the peri-urban areas can also, or companies or cooperatives in these other different well-developed areas can collaborate with the farmers in the rural areas in order to help them reach the market, in order to help them know the best markets and the different regions to focus on. From your perspective and from your expertise, just give us a little bit about that so that we wrap up the conversation.
I think the conversation has already been going and we've had improvements in that. The biggest step that was taken in the industry was allowing farmers to have direct negotiations with the exporters. Okay, so now they don't need to rely on cooperatives to actually secure deals or sell through the cooperatives. If they can have a direct conversation with the buyer and the buyer supports their practices and they know how much they're getting from that buyer, I think that will go a long way to ensuring that coffee farmers are paid competitively. And then we may also need maybe legislature of actually purchasers of coffee coming out and saying what they do in terms of corporate social responsibility based on re-empowering the markets where they obtain the coffee from. As I mentioned now, companies do it and come and bring the value addition within the country of origin is one step they can do. And perhaps sharing of profits, a discussion where they can have a sharing on profits on final sales is another conversation they can do, or creating employment channels. If you're an exporter and you decide, okay, I'm going to create employment channels locally for the coffee farmers, is another initiative they can do that would really help.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insights. There you have it. Remember, last week we looked at the whole process of coffee growing. We saw the different processes in which you as a farmer can make sure that your coffee is harvested in the right way and also sourced at the end of the day. And today we've looked at the whole process, the seed that was harvested and roasted, and how it has gone through all these processes, and now we have the coffee in the cup. We've come to the end of this particular edition, and remember, every Tuesday we take you through the process, from the seed to the cup. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Keep it Farm Kenya, right here on KTN.
Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa mkulima, kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja